Collectivist societies versus individualist society. Collectivist societies emphasize the needs, wants, and goals of a group over the needs and desires of each individual, or self-centered. Individualistic societies are those prioritize the need of an individual over the needs of the group as whole. In this culture, people are viewed in an independent way, and social behavior tends to be directed by the attitudes and preferences of individuals. So, both collectivist and individualistic societies are concerned and with how individuals in a society prioritize and manage their relationship and goals. In summary, collectivism prioritizes solidarity over individual goals, while individualistic focuses on human independence and freedom. Collectivist is characterized as we, we, while individualistic is in terms of I. Last, Lastly, unlike in individualist, kinship and community are highly essential in collectivist societies. Language policy and politics. The relationship between language and society cannot be discussed for long without touching on the political ramifications of language and language policy. Virtually every country has some form of official and unofficial policy affecting the status of its native languages and foreign languages. Ultimately, those language policies become politicized as a special interest vie or compete for power and economic gain. Into this mix, English, now the major worldwide lingua franca, a language that is adopted as a common language between speakers whose native debate as policymakers struggle over the legitimization of varieties of English. Some strands of research even suggest that English teaching worldwide threatens to form an elitist cultural hegemony, widening the gap between haves and have-nots. The language policies and language politics are disagree and have a different opinions, debates, and theories. So in short, language policies and politics are disagreeing to each other. The Whorfian Hypothesis. A tantalizing question emerged from such observations. Does language reflect a cultural worldview, or does language actually shape the worldview? Drawing on the ideas of Wilhelm von Humboldt, who claimed that language shaped a person's Weltanschauung, a particular philosophy or view of life, or worldview. Edward Sapir and Benjamin Whorf proposed a hypothesis that has now been given several alternative labels. These are the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, the Whorfian hypothesis, linguistic relativity or linguistic determinism, or what most now refer to as the Whorfian hypothesis. Over the years, the Whorfian hypothesis has unfortunately been overstated and misinterpreted. Goira criticized Whorf's claim that the influence of language on behavior was undifferentiated, all-pervasive, permanent, and absolute. Goira called these claims extravagant, It appeared that it was Goira's interpretation that was extravagant, for he put ideas into Worf's writings that were never there. In the spirit of those who have exposed the mythical nature of many of the claims about linguistic determinism, Ronald Ward Howe offered the following alternative to a strong view of the Whorfian hypothesis. The most valid conclusion to all such studies is that it appears possible to talk about anything in any language provided the speaker is willing to use some degree of circumlocution. Every natural language provides both of a language for talking about every other language, that is, a meta-language, and an entirely adequate apparatus for making any kinds of observations that need to be made about the world. If such is the case, every natural language must be an extremely rich system, which readily allows its speakers to overcome any dispositions that exist. In classroom connections, research findings says that ever since Benjamin Whorf suggested in the mid-1950s that language has a strong effect on one's thinking and worldview, debates have been raging on both sides of the issue. While the current consensus is that the language and thinking are interdependent, meaning they depend on each other, the fact remains that learning a second language may very well involve learning new ways of thinking, feeling, and eating. For teaching amplifications, stated that most foreign languages programs recognize the importance of the language-culture connection, but sometimes fall short of recognizing deep-seated and often subtle predispositions that are embedded in a language. Culture in the language classroom. Studying a language is unlike any other subject. In addition to reading, writing, listening, and speaking, students need to be aware of how to interact using the language within a new culture that is often very different from their own. Many curricula, including those of Alberta, include nature as something that students need to learn when studying a language. Though English teachers all over the world are focused on making sure their students acquire the linguistic skills needed to advance their nations, L1 language and culture also play an important role in the language classroom. Language and culture are very connected to each other. So, language teachers should teach students culture of the source language to make sure that students will use the language in the right culture context. Teachers should also pay attention to the way his students look at teaching process. The classroom culture is created through the language we use, the responsibilities we encourage, and the procedures we teach. A purposely classroom culture teaches children the social emotional skills they need to succeed in the world, in and out of school. These skills is including understanding and managing emotions.